Here are timestamps for the shortcuts, plugins, and macros. Starting with the shortcuts. I'll speedrun through useful shortcuts. I have their premier name and what key I have them assigned to in the corner of the screen. So you can go to edit, shortcuts, search up their name, and assign them to whatever key you want. So here we go. The numbers 1 and 2 to move 1 frame backward and 1 frame forward, so I can reach where I want to go in the timeline faster than using my mouse. E and Q to zoom out and in of the timeline. I must use these 10 times a minute, honestly. It saves so much time compared to using my mouse normally. V to enable and disable clips, because I used to delete clips and got hurt one too many times, so now I just disable them. A to add edit to all tracks, and B to rip a chimp to previous playback. These two go hand in hand because I use them while cutting. I just go to the end of the audio, click A, go to the next audio and click B, and it automatically cuts them together. W to rip or delete, so when there's a clip that I decide to cut out, I just click on it and press W. Alt plus 1 to move the selected clips 1 frame to the left, and Alt plus 2 to move the selected clips 1 frame to the right. These two help me line up clips and space them apart so much quicker than using my mouse. And after that I have Alt plus 3 to move the selected clips 5 frames to the left, and Alt plus 4 to move them 5 frames to the right. So now I can hold Alt, click 1 and 2 to move them 1 frame backward and forward, or click 3 and 4 to move them 5 frames forward or backward. This is super useful when I'm spacing out clips for animations like this. Usually I'd have to space them out with my mouse, which would take this long, as you see on the left of the screen. But with the shortcuts I can do them like this on the right of the screen. Down and up to go to previous and next edit points. This is useful also for navigating the timeline. And on the topic of moving through the timeline, if you press shift and move your playback, it's gonna automatically move your playback to the closest edit point. And if you do the same in the effects tab, it's gonna move your playback to the closest keyframe, which I use a lot and is super useful while making animations, because it's so much faster than moving your playback to the keyframe and having to line it up perfectly every time. And this one you don't have to actually make in the shortcuts tab, it's just automatic. And while we're still inside of the effects tab, instead of clicking the clock to add a keyframe, just click on whatever you want to add the keyframe to and press your shortcut to add or remove video keyframe. I have it as shift plus space. Going back to the timeline, I have the selection tool as space. I have rate touch so I can slow down and speed up clips with accuracy super fast. I have it as R. Next thing, when I select a clip and press F, it turns red, and when I press X, it turns white. This is a super quick way to label clips so I don't get confused while editing. You can find all label colors in the shortcuts tab. I just chose red and white. Next up, I have it so when I'm inside of the project files and press C, it automatically adds an adjustment layer to the project file, so I can just drag it into the timeline. Again, as a reminder, I have all the official Premiere shortcut names in the corner of the screen, so you can search them up super easy. I press F8 to make a rectangular shape, and I use it a lot in my animations, even though it doesn't look like it, because I add so many effects on top of the rectangles, but I use it a lot. And F9 to make a circle. Also, bonus tip on both of these, if you press shift, you're gonna make a perfect square and a perfect circle. It took me way too long to figure this out. And next up, I have shift plus V as paste attributes. The way that paste attribute works is that when you copy a clip and then go on another clip and do paste attributes, it's gonna allow you to paste the motion of the first clips that you copied. It's gonna allow you to paste the opacity, all of the effects, everything. Just gonna get pasted on the second clip, so you don't have to remake it again. And then I also have shift F as delete attributes. The way it works is when you select a clip and click shift F, it allows you to delete the motion, the opacity, the effects, and you can select and unselect them depending on what you want to delete from the clip. And that's basically it. I have a million other shortcuts that I use for macros, which I'm gonna get into later. But these are all the shortcuts that I use like 500 times a minute and that are worth learning as a beginner in my opinion. Of course, plus the macros that I'm gonna get into later. Now into plugins. The first plugin we have is Listary, which isn't actually a plugin, but it's super useful. I've talked about it before in my videos. So usually when you need to find a specific file, you either know the location of it, so you open File Manager, go to that location, drag it into the timeline. Or you don't know the location of it, so you keep looking for it, or use the File Manager search engine, which takes forever to load anything. And then after stopping your workflow, open a File Manager, searching up for it, waiting for the File Manager to search for it, and dragging it in, you go back to editing, which is a lot of wasted time. Listary basically saves all of that time. You open it up by pressing Ctrl twice, and it opens up a search bar where you can search for anything, and it searches your whole computer through milliseconds, which is way faster than the File Manager search. And after that, you just drag it in, and you don't have to close it, it just automatically goes in the background until you need it again. It doesn't even show in the taskbar as an app. You just press double control when you need it and click anywhere on the screen when you want to close it. Especially the way that I sort my files is super useful. For example, for my sound effects, I have SFX at the end of all my sound effects. So when I'm searching up for a specific sound effect, I can just type the name of it and then type SFX, which gets rid of all of the other stuff that I don't need. For example, if I'm searching for a dog sound effect, I can just type dog SFX and only dog sound effects show up. I can do the same for guns. I can type gun SFX and it shows all of the gun sound effects, and I can just drag any to the timeline. I can type close SFX and it shows all of the close wrapping and close scratching sound effects. I can type fine boom sound effect and it shows me all of the versions of the fine booms I have. And you can do the same with anything. For example, I'm in the Minecraft niche and I have downloaded all the Minecraft items and I have added MC2D at the end of them, Minecraft 2D. So now when I need a Minecraft item, I just type its name, for example, pickaxe, diamond, MC2D, and it shows up. And you can do that with any niche that you're in. So it's super useful. Also, the sound effects folders that I have with SFX at the end of all the sound effects. I have like thousands of them. I'm gonna have like a link to get them for free. Upload this video, I'm gonna just upload them to Google Drive. Now into the next plugin, which is an actual plugin this time. It's copy pasta. I'm gonna have the links for all the plugins down below this video. I'm not affiliated with any of them. I'm just gonna have them down below so you don't install any viruses. Anyways, what copy pasta does is instead of going to Chrome, searching up an image, right clicking it, clicking download save as, typing a name for it and saving it, opening up File Manager and going to that location and dragging it into the timeline. Copy pasta helps you save all of that time by just right clicking the image, clicking copy, going to Premiere, clicking paste. And it just pastes the image in 4 quality. This one also saves me a lot of time. I use it like at least 5 times an hour. And that's it. It's quite simple, honestly. You just can copy any image and paste it into Premiere with a button. I have my button in the super corner of the screen so it doesn't take much space, but it's still super easy to click. Next plugin I use is Mr. Horse. I'm gonna walk through all the useful stuff that I get from it because there's a lot of noise that I don't use. The only things that I use from it is the text pieces and the translation presets. Starting with the text presets is quite simple. There's a lot of presets that have animations for text. You can customize them however you want by just selecting them and going to animation. You can change any value to just play with the animation and make it look your way. You can also go to the text tab and change the color, change the font, change the stroke, change the size of the text, and bam, the animation will be applied automatically. I recommend playing with the settings of the animation in and animation out a lot because you can make so many unique animations that you can save as presets. And the transitions are quite simple. You can just drag them into the timeline and now we have the transition. The two I use most commonly are the zoom in and zoom out transitions, which you can click on transform and change the anchor point of it to choose where the zoom is zooming into. But other than that, the transitions are quite straightforward. You add a transition and the transitions. I don't recommend overusing them though. Use transitions only when it makes sense. For example, if we're saying something and one angle is taken from the left and the other is taken from the right, then you have permission to do a pan transition from left to right. But if it's the same shot or if it's not to the right of the other shot, then you don't add a transition going from left to right. So that just confuses the viewer. Again, as an example, if we're showing a big shot of a house and the next shot is inside of the house, you can add a zoom in transition. So it zooms in from outside of the house to inside of the house. But again, if the shots are unrelated, you cannot add a zoom in transition. It doesn't make any sense and it just confuses the viewer. It might look cool when you're starting out, but only add them when they make sense. That's the only acceptable situation where you should add transition. For example, for this video that I did for a Fortnite YouTuber with 2 million subscribers, in this scene, the girlfriend was falling and she died at the bottom of the bed. And the next scene was him reacting to it at the top of the bed. So I added a zoom out transition to give the viewer a better idea of where they're both positioned. So yeah, other than the transitions and the text, Mr. Horse doesn't have many useful stuff other than these two. I don't recommend paying for it. There's a premium version from Mr. Horse, but I think the free version is just fine when you learn how to customize it correctly. So all the plugins so far are completely free, but there's some that are paid that I use. So I just mentioned them right here. They're BCC, Red Giant Universe, and Sapphire. TC have like super expensive, crazy subscriptions that are supposed to be for filmmakers that are making movies. But honestly, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I don't pay these subscriptions. You can take that as well. These plugins simply add some custom effects to the effects tab. There's like lots of them, and they're all super cool and super unique. Though they are laggy, I have to admit. All of the plugin effects are laggy, but in my opinion, they're worth it because they look super cool and they have helped with my animations a lot. It's the way that I do 3D completely in Premiere, if you're wondering. So yeah, I use all of these three and basically all of my edits. I've been using them for a long time and they're quite useful. Again, going through them, they're PCC Continuum, Red Giant Universe, and Sapphire. These are the three I recommend. And these were all of the plugins. I recommend installing all of them right now. So it speeds up your workflow over time and you don't have to run it later on when you get used to Premiere already. For the macros, I have 5 extra buttons on my mouse, 6 if we include the scroll wheel. And I use Logitech G Hub to make my macros. You can use whichever software you want, as long as it has an option to make one button press multiple buttons in sequence. I'd recommend you replicate all of the effects I'm gonna go through in your own software, also because you're gonna learn how to use your own software, because I make a new super specific macro every other day. So you need to learn how to make them as well if you want to be super efficient. As a reminder, I have said this in the shortcuts section, but for the macros, I have a lot of shortcuts that I haven't talked about that I just assigned to make these macros possible. To follow along and replicate all the macros I have, so I'm gonna say their names, just assign these shortcuts to any buttons that you don't use. Might be F5 for example, F6, numpad 5, any button. It doesn't matter because the macro is gonna press them for you. You're not gonna reach your hand to press them yourself. So going through the macros, I have macros for changing the audio gain, nesting, starting and stopping playback, something I call split 4000, and finally a macros that I use to open up my most commonly used effects. I call this macro search because it searches up for all my shortcuts automatically with a click of a button. Starting with the macro to change the audio gain automatically. The way it works is I hold my side button on an audio clip, type the numbers that I want the audio gain to go up or down, and let go of my side button and it automatically gets applied. This is how it looks in action. It happens by when I click on my side button, it starts a sequence of pressing left click, pressing G, which I have as audio gain, and when I let go of my side button, it presses enter, and bam, here it is in action. Next is the nesting macro. The way it works is I hold my other side button down, go over what I want to nest, and let go of my side button, and it all gets nested automatically. This is how it looks in action. It happens by when I press the side button, it virtually presses the left click, but doesn't let go of it, so I can select the clips that I want, until I let go of my side button, and then it lets go of left click, presses D, which I have as nest, and then presses enter, and bam, here it is in action. And now to start and stop playing. This one is quite simple. There's a shortcut called play stop toggle. It does exactly what it says. When I press my side button, it presses that shortcut. Though sometimes when I'm cutting and I want to cut at 2x the speed, I have it also press L, which I have as shutter right, which speeds up the playback to 2x. And bam, here it is in action. And the next macro is spread 4000. Ooh. This one I must use like literally 7 times a minute. Normally to make a cut, you have to move your mouse to the razor tool, click it, click on the place you want to cut, and click back to the selection tool. So that's too much work. So I have a macro that does it all in one click. It happens by when I press my side button, it presses my shortcut to the razor tool, and when I let go of my side button, it presses left click to make the cut, and then my shortcut for the selection tool, and bam, here it is in action. It's very simple, but it saves me so much time. And the next macro is the search macro. I've never seen anyone do something like this before. It took me a super long time to figure out, but it's super useful and saves me so much time. So now hopefully you can replicate this so you save yourself the time without getting the scar of spending so much time figuring it out. Whenever I click my scroll wheel, no matter if the effects tab is open or not, it automatically gets opened, and it automatically goes to the search, and it automatically searches up all my commonly used effects. So I can access them all right away from the same place without having to write their names in. This macro requires a bit more of a setup than the other ones. You're gonna have to make a folder in Premiere, and you're gonna have to add a code at the end of the name of it, so that no other effect or folder has a new Premiere. So for example, the code I use is double underscore. So now when I type double underscore, it only shows that folder and nothing else. The code has to be super short, minus 2 letters, so the macro can search it up super quickly. I recommend you use the same one, which is double underscore. So the folder will be named something like shortcuts double underscore. In this folder, you're gonna add all of your most commonly used effects. You can also sort them out in subfolders if you want. Here's what mine looks like. A folder for drop shadow, a folder for pop-up animations, and beside those I have also handheld shake, a transform effect with shutter angle set to 360, and a zoom in effect. If you've done everything correctly so far, when you search up double underscore or whatever code you have for your folder name, only your most commonly used effects that you bought inside of the folder are gonna show up. Try to keep the list small if possible. If it's bigger than your effects tab, then you're gonna have to scroll down to see some of the effects, which is gonna make it slower. You shouldn't need that many anyway, just put all of your most commonly used ones that you use like 5 times a minute. Now if you're following along and all of your commonly used effects show up when you type the code in the search, the only thing left right now is to make a macro to do that for you. Here's how the macro works. When I press my scroll wheel down, it plays the following sequence. It presses left click, it presses my shortcut for effects, which makes the window come up even if it's hidden, and then it presses my shortcut for select find box. That's the name of the shortcut, which basically selects the search bar. And then it holds down Control and presses A, lets go of Control and presses backspace. What that basically does is if I had anything typed in the search bar before using the macro, it automatically selects it all and deletes it. And then it types in the code, which is double underscore in my situation. After it types in the double underscore, the shortcuts tab appear, and then I can see all of my most commonly used effects. And bam, here it is in action. There's one last thing that isn't as important though. If you have a Logitech mouse like I do, here's a low script which you can add to your mouse like this. That makes it so if you click the search macro on top of a clip, you'll be able to go to the effects tab and click the DBI up button in any of the effects that you want applied, and it will automatically apply to the effect without moving your mouse. Here's what it looks like in action. I can just add 5 effects like this with no time delay dragging it into the clip. That was like 6 effects in 1 second. If we don't have a Logitech mouse, you're gonna have to convert the script into whatever scripting language that your software uses. If you use the logistic mouse, you should go to the script part, you should paste the script, and then you should disable the DPI up button from doing anything else. This isn't necessary though, it's just some overkill that I did for fun. I thought I'd just mention it, so if anyone has a Logitech mouse or has some free time and knows some scripting, he can just do it for himself without taking the stupid amount of time that I took to make it. Though it is overkill and not necessary at all. All the other macros and shortcuts and plugins are way more important than this one. All of these macros, shortcuts, and plugins that I have gone through will take a long time to set up because it's gonna save you so much time, and I have only mentioned the super important ones that are actually worth your time. If you set all of them up today or tomorrow, your future self is gonna be thankful for you that he did all of the boring upfront work and now he can just edit super fast. This video is gonna be updated if you find any more shortcuts, macros, or plugins that are useful, but so far these are the only practical stuff that I found. I've tested so many stuff, but these are the only ones that actually work by saving you time. All the other ones are just headache for no reason. And now when you're ready and optimize your workflow by assigning all the shortcuts, making all the macros, and installing all the plugins, the next step is setting up your Twitter and portfolio, which is the next model.